So let's just open with a little chant and let's see how it goes. So you can just come to a comfortable seated position here, and we will chant just the Sahana Bhavatu. I think most of you know this invocation, the peace mantra. So you can just close your eyes. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavaditamastu ma Vishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you. So I just want to go over a little bit about pranayama, the definition of pranayama. So we can just start with a little lecture, a little talk today, and we can add on an extra day for more in-depth looking at the practices at the end. So we'll just modify our schedule a little bit. But so in Sanskrit, prana means breath, or it also means the life force within us. And ayama means the extension or the expansion or the pause, so like a space. And yama, means control. So the word is interesting because it has this sort of double meaning in a way. The pranayama is the extension and the expansion of the breath, but it also often is translated as the control of the breath. But it's really about elongating and lengthening and creating more space, more pause within the breath or the life force itself. In doing that, there's many benefits. It's said that we can extend our life and save, push away old age and death. So live a longer, healthier, happier life, which is really what we are looking to do through the practices of yoga. But also pranayama in particular is used to really liberate the energy, the psychosomatic energy, this force of spiritual reserve that's said to reside at the base of the spine. And so this pranayama practice is really targeting this subtle energy within us, and we're using the breath and to do that. And this works in some interesting ways. In some ways, breath is very much connected to the most primal part of ourself, to our brainstem. It's the one thing that connects our conscious and our unconscious mind. So we're mostly breathing without thinking about it. So it's an unconscious process. But we can take control of it and make it conscious. So it connects the two nervous systems, the autonomic nervous system and the other one, the one that's conscious, the central nervous system. And it's very much connected to our central nervous system, our heart, our lungs, and the movement of energy through the spine and the brainstem and into the brain, right? So it's also deeply connected with our emotions. And we see that when we get mad, or when we're stressed out, we start taking maybe some deep breaths to help us relax. Everything gets tightened. And if we're sad, our breath is also affected. So breathing is very much connected to these unconscious areas of ourselves, but it's also something that we can start to consciously control. So it's really uniting these two facets of our psyche. So it's kind of a beautiful connection and union here. So Patanjali describes in the second chapter, verse 49, what pranayama is. And he says, Tasmin sati shwasa prashwasayor gativicheda pranayamaha. And so shwasa is the inhalation or the air coming in. Prashwasa is the exhalation or the air going out. Gati is the movements. Vichedana is the regulation or the suspension. And so it's saying that pranayama is the suspension or the regulation of the movements of the incoming and the outgoing air. And so he also says, like, tasmin sati, upon establishing this, so upon establishing a comfortable seat, an asana, which hopefully you've found and you're in, we can, sorry, I was just checking to see if there was any emergency emails. We can then move into the practice of pranayama. So establishing a comfortable sitting position is really important when you begin the practice of pranayama. The second sutra that talks about pranayama comes right after that. It's the 50th sutra in the second chapter. Bahya Bhyantara Stamba Vrittir Deshakala Sankhyabi Paridrishto Dirga Sukshmaha. So what does all this mean? Bahya is the external or outward. Abhyantara is the internal or moving inward. Stamba, it's kind of sounds like its meaning. It means to suspend or to make motionless or to restrain. Vritti, I think have an idea of what vritti is because of the yoga's chitta vritti nirodha. So the vritti is the movements, these fluctuations, or a mode of behavior. So the way the mind moves is the vritti. The way the breath moves is the vritti of the breath. So we have a pattern of breathing, and this pattern of breathing is maybe unique to us, to who we are. And when we practice pranayama, we're interrupting or disrupting this pattern of breathing. We're starting to stop the breath, hold the breath. We're also trying to elongate and lengthen the breath. And so these movements are regulated by three things: desha, place or region; kala, time; sankhya, a number or counting. Like the Sankhya system of philosophy, it means the enumeration or numbers or counting. B, Sankhya B. B is just a instrumental case for Sankhya. So it means like the instrumental case is by, with, I think. Something like this. Yeah. What you do something with, by or with. So by counting, or it's basically by number. Paridrishta becomes seen, becomes manifest, or is regulated. Dirga is a prolonged, or as Patabi Joyce would say, a long. So a long period. Sukshma is the subtle. So to make something subtle or fine is sukshma. And so it's saying the movements of the breath are either incoming, or they're outgoing, or they're suspended. And they are measured or regulated by time, place, and number, so that the breathing itself becomes elongated or longer, prolonged, and subtle. And so this is the two sutras that talk about the practice of pranayama. There's two others, but we'll discuss those later because these are the main ones describing what pranayama is and what it means and what it does. So we're dealing with the movements of the breath. So again, there's two main drishtis for pranayama. There's nasikra drishti, so just looking down the nose, kind of at a space on the floor. You can also close your eyes and really move the mind internally, focusing the mind at the base of the spine. or the other drishti is brahmadya. But sometimes it's a little bit too much to focus on brahmadya. At the beginning, it's better to focus downward, because really what we're trying to do is wake up this energy at the base of the spine and engage the pelvic floor and the energy in the lower abdomen and in the pelvis itself. So, as I mentioned, finding the seat, establishing the asana comes first. And so there's a couple different traditions. In the tradition of Pattabhi Jois, the Ashtanga Yoga tradition, he would not teach pranayama very often unless you were quite advanced in the asana practice, meaning the cultural asanas you had to be practicing into third series. Other schools or lineages of yoga don't have that same requirement, physical requirement. But what is required is to be able to sit comfortably and find a way that you can sit for a prolonged period of time. Because in order to engage in the practice of pranayama, you need to be able to sit comfortably for a while. So the other interesting thing about different lineages of pranayama, Pattabhi Jois would start with very long holds, long external retentions, long internal retentions right away. And it was very much a like a test of will, or like a fight for your life. You felt it ignited a lot of fear and frustration or anxiety often within people, because the holds were so long, and he really expected you to have strong mind control, strong bandha control before even approaching a practice of pranayama. He didn't start with the easy pranayama and build up. It was just really hard right away. This is what you're doing. Whereas other lineages of pranayama start slower, easier, and then gradually train the breath to stay steady and lengthen over time. So it's just a different type of approach and a different emphasis. And so I learned mostly pranayama. I did practice pranayama with Pattabhi Jois for one season that I was there in the early 2007, right before he fell ill. And he was teaching a small group of us pranayama. But prior to that, and also following that subsequently, I've been practicing pranayama for the last 16 years, mainly in the lineage of the Kavalyadam, Sri O.P. Tiwari. And they have a very different approach where you start slowly and gradually increase the length of the breath and the length of the holds in a very systematic and mathematical way. And for me, it made a lot of sense, and it felt very safe and very well thought out. And also there was a history and a lineage behind it that was incredibly strong. And many people had practiced this way for a long period of time. So the same way that the Ashtanga Yoga system or sequence of postures by Pattabhi Jois is really built up a lot of intelligence in how the asanas are approached, and in opening and then reversing the opening, right? Opening and closing, different areas of the body. Getting into each facet of your body in new ways, and they build upon each other. So first series builds into second series, and both those series then build into third series. The pranayama that I studied at Kavalyadam with Sri O.P. Tiwari was really that. It's a system that it builds on each other, and it addresses the individual also. So your dosha, if you have a little bit more pitta imbalance, a little bit more vata imbalance, a little bit more kapha imbalance, there's different pranayamas that you should do as an individual that will help your own condition. And so for me, it felt, it just resonated more because there was more intelligence behind the practice. But that's just my thoughts and feelings on it. Other people may have preferred Pattabhi Jois's style of pranayama, and that's just a personal preference. But one thing is, once you start to practice within a tradition or within a lineage, it's important that you kind of follow that lineage. Pranayama is something that really requires a teacher, at least at the beginning, and it requires consistent, regular practice. It's not something that you can kind of drop into and out of. When you drop out of it for a while, you have to start again at the beginning and kind of build it back up. And so it's a practice that you're going to get the most benefit from when you practice regularly and not sporadically. And so, asana is also like this, but you can kind of like drop in and out of asana, pop into a class and then not take a class for a week and then pop in again. And it's not, you'll get some benefits, but, it's very much focused on the physical benefits and on the physical development. Again, you'll get some mental benefits for sure. It's all connected. It's all interconnected. But pranayama is really about building this prana and building up your ability to retain CO2 within the lungs. And so we need to do that consistently over a long period of time, or you won't ever be able to progress. And so that's the main thing. If you want to progress, you want to really go deep into the practice, you have to do it regularly. So there's a couple different ways of finding a stable seated position. You don't necessarily have to sit in the lotus posture. I like to sit in the lotus posture because I just trained myself to do that right leg first and then left leg. But if this lotus posture isn't comfortable, or say you can't sit in lotus, there's a couple other asanas that you can do. So I'm just going to skip down to different types of asanas. So there's siddhasana, which is taking the left foot and you place the heel, I think, on the thigh. The left heel into the perineum. This one's mostly used for men, actually. So the left heel goes into the perineum. And so you're going to kind of sit on top of it. And if you have external genitalia, you have to kind of lift them up to get the heel underneath. And then the right heel, sorry, I'm doing the opposite. The right heel gets put on top. So the heels come together like this. And if you have external genitalia, it gets squished between your feet. And it's supposed to reduce your excitement during the practice of pranayama. Sometimes things can arise when you're dealing with subtle energy in the pelvic region. And so, it's mostly used for men. Siddhasana. There's Sukhasana, which is a very easy one, lining up the heels and the foot is just in front of, it doesn't really matter which foot, whichever way feels comfortable. There's the other one, Swastikasana, which is very similar. It's pulling the heel in, but you're going to tuck the top foot between the calf and the thigh. And the heels kind of rest one on top of each other. So Swastikasana. And I think I mentioned one other one. Let me just see here. That's Samanasana. Sorry, Samasana. But Swastikasana is very similar. You bring the foot in and the other foot, and you're going to tuck the toes up. So one foot comes up and gets tucked between the thigh and the calf, and the other foot goes down and gets tucked between the thigh and the calf, and your heels are more at the groin area. So these are different seated postures you could take if sitting is comfortable, but it doesn't have to necessarily be that complicated. If Sitting isn't comfortable. The most important thing is that the knees are below the hips. So you don't want to be like this, because when the knees are up and there's this tightness in the hips, it rounds your abdomen, and it's hard to feel like you can take a full breath. So if that's kind of where you're feeling like you're kind of crunched down here, your legs are up here, there's a lot of stress or strain in the shoulders, I would recommend taking a block. And there's a couple different ways you can do this. So you could sit on the block or a bolster or a blanket and just take like a sukhasana, but now the pelvis is lifted and the knees can come down. It's quite relaxed. The chest can be open as you breathe. If sitting cross-legged isn't helpful, you can also sit in a kneeling position on top of something so that you can free up the pelvis and the lower abdomen and the upper abdomen, and so that the spine is straight. So you can sit on the block or not on the block, or you can just fold up your mat a little bit or use a little blanket or a bolster, whatever feels like a comfortable seated posture where your spine can be straight and your sit bones can be rooted into the floor, and you can feel that length through the spine. So that's really important for these breathing practices, that your diaphragm is free to expand and you're not holding tension in the abdomen, you're not rounded, right? Because it's really hard to take a deep, full breath when you're rounded. So you really want to open up the chest, feel the shoulders drop down, feel that expansiveness in the lungs. Okay, so then, of course, the 3 bandhas, these energetic locks or ties, are really important in the practice of pranayama. So we have the mula bandha, which is the root lock situated between the external and the internal, or the external genitals and the anus. So between the sit bones and the pubic bone and the tailbone. So it's the pelvic floor area. This is your root lock, and it's really important to learn how to engage the mula bandha correctly when you're practicing pranayama. It's not about creating tension in the glutes or even really tension in the pelvic floor. It's about a very subtle energetic effect of lifting up, and that's done by not contracting the anus. I mean, there's not really a good word for it, but it's like a lift. Like it's like you're trying to stop, like if you were to take a urine test and you're trying to stop the urine midstream, and you kind of have to suck up. That's the mula bandha action, is that sucking up action, but in the pelvic floor area. So at the beginning, sometimes we need to re-engage the mula bandha. We kind of lose it. We lose that connection to it. There's not a strong neurological path from our mind to our pelvic floor. And so I have a little exercise. I think a lot of you are familiar with it. We can do it right now, but it helps to just create that connection. And so this is one of the exercises that I would ask that you do this week, which is just 10 simple breaths. And with each of these simple breaths, you're going to keep connecting to the pelvic floor and keep trying to re-engage mula bandha, but then you're going to release it. So it's not holding it the whole time. I want you to get used to letting go and picking back up, and letting go and picking back up, and letting go and picking back up. And by doing that, you're going to learn the correct way of sucking up, but not in a way where you're creating a lot of tension and irritation in the pelvic floor. It should feel very pleasant. It should feel very stabilizing for the spine and very pleasant. And the mind and the shoulders, everything can relax when mula bandha is properly engaged. And so this is why it's such an important practice in the practice of yoga and pranayama. So if you just find a comfortable seated position, whichever position you want to take, either cross-legged or in Padmasana, we're going to also work on creating this dirgha of the breath, the elongation of the breath. And also while we are creating this elongation of the breath, you can you're working actually on training yourself to hold the breath. So we're going to inhale and exhale for twice the length of the inhale. And so by doing that, you are learning to deepen and lengthen the breath, but also you're holding the breath a little bit because you have to extend the exhalation. And so it's the first step towards breath retention, or kumbhaka, but in a way that's very safe and comfortable. So the other thing that is nice to have is metronome. And so there's apps on phones like this where I use this one called Soundbrenner, but I mean, there's 100 different types of metronomes that are free apps. And so it's very simple. I set it to so that it ticks every second. And that way, if you have a clock that ticks that has a second hand, one of those old-fashioned kind, you can just listen to the ticking clock. But at the beginning, if you're struggling, you'll tend to internally count faster to make it go quicker, or like you won't necessarily have an even count, or like if you're, when you're holding your breath, sometimes you kind of could get lost in your thoughts, and then you don't know how long you've been holding for. So in this way of practicing pranayama, it's very important to keep that count, because as also Patanjali said, we're to regulate the breath by region, place, how we're breathing, where we're breathing, also time, so the length of the breath, and by count, by the number, right? And how many times we're breathing. And so there's a lot to keep track of. You don't just get to like tune out and, think about rainbows and butterflies. You have to really keep the mind trained to stay in the present moment and to keep track of what you're doing. So I'm going to lead you through the first 5 rounds of simple breathing, and I'm going to take just sort of a general 4-second inhale, 8-second exhale, and then you can do 5 rounds on your own. And if for you, like maybe 5 seconds feels more comfortable for inhaling and 10 seconds for exhaling, or maybe 3 seconds for inhaling, 6 seconds for exhaling, or 2 seconds for inhaling, 4 seconds for exhaling, whatever feels comfortable for you, okay? So everybody's going to be at slightly different places, maybe 6 seconds inhaling, 12 seconds exhaling. But it's important to find what is natural for you and what you can sustain. So sometimes you might start, say, 3 and 6, and after 3 breaths, you can easily feel like you can go to 4 and 8. If you can sustain it comfortably at 4 and 8, then the next day you start at 4 and 8. Okay, but if you can't sustain it comfortably at 4 and 8, then go back to 3 and 6 and keep it at 3 and 6 for at least a week. Okay, so you want to gradually increase the length of time that you are inhaling and exhaling, so that over the next few months, your capacity for breathing extends. But you don't want to push yourself. It shouldn't feel like you're straining the breath at the end, or that you're gasping for air like that. It should feel very natural and very easy. Okay, so let's just start with this simple breathing, inhaling through both nostrils, exhaling for double the length of the inhale. We're going to use the ujjayi sound, so that breath with sound as we're breathing. Okay? So I think you can hear the ticking. Maybe it's a little bit quiet, but I think you can hear it. I hope. So wherever you are, you can either just look down at the floor, close the eyes, take a deep inhale, and then just exhale all the air out. Bring the mind to the sit bones and the tailbone and the pubic bone, and then inhale. Exhale, and as you're exhaling, release all the tension in the pelvic floor. And then again, inhale, draw the sit bones together, the tailbone, pubic bone together, and exhale, releasing all the tension in the pelvic floor. Bring the mind back to the sit bones and the tailbone, the pubic bone. Inhale, feel like you're pulling them all into the center line of the body, and then exhale. Release all the tension with the inhale, let go. And then again, inhale, draw the sit bones together, tailbone, pubic bone comes together. Exhale. And one more time. Inhaling, sit bones come together, tailbone, pubic bone comes together. There's a lift, drawing in, and then exhale for twice the length of your inhale. So elongating that exhale. So 5 more rounds on your own. With each inhale, try to bring the mind back to the sit bones and the tailbone, the pubic bone, and feel all 4 corners drawing in towards the center line of the torso. And as you're exhaling, try to release and relax and just let go of any tension. So if the glutes got engaged or activated, just release them. With each inhale, bringing the awareness to the pelvic floor. With each exhale, releasing, relaxing. Good. I think you're probably done or close to done. So that's one of the exercises that you can do this week. Just simple breathing, inhaling and exhaling. The other bandhas that are also used is the root of the Uddiyana Bandha, so about 3 fingers below the navel. You want to engage the lower abdomen. And I was also going to have you start to practice Uddiyana Bandha Kriya this week. So some of you will be familiar with this, some of you maybe not. So I'll see if I can demo here. Maybe, let me just move this up a bit. Okay, so you're going to bend your knees and place your hands on the knees, and the arms will be straight. And you're going to exhale all the air out. You can exhale through the mouth or the nose, whatever. And then you have to relax your belly. And then without drawing any air in, so it's an exhale retention. After you exhale, no air comes in. You lift the diaphragm. And then release and inhale. So the whole time you're holding your breath out, and only after you release the Uddiyana Bandha do you inhale. So again, exhale. Then relax the belly, make it big, like a big pregnant belly, so all the muscles are relaxed, and then it's a lift of the diaphragm. And then release and inhale. So I can't see any of you, so unfortunately I can't take a look, but we'll look next week. But you can try doing that like 3 to 5 times. So you really want to feel the ribs spreading and opening. And it's like a vacuum or like a suction. When you lift the diaphragm, you might feel some pulling down through the clavicle area. And it's just using that lift of the diaphragm, the pressure, the negative pressure pulls the organs and the stomach muscles back and flattens them against the back part of the body. So it's not an engagement or a tightening or a using of those abdominal muscles. So I'm not engaging them when I lift. I'm not like tightening them like, Uddiyana Bandha, make it happen. I'm relaxing them all, letting the belly relax, and then just lifting the diaphragm. And then releasing and inhaling. So it's, that's Uddiyana Bandha, Kriya. And Kriya just means an action. It's one of the cleansing actions. This is best done in the morning before you eat or drink anything. Or if you've drank something, give yourself like maybe a half hour to let the liquid pass through you. So you want your stomach to be empty, and this can help with digestion and elimination in the morning. So it's good to do before the asana practice and before the pranayama practice, because it helps you to move your digestive system. So I would suggest you try 3 or 5 times each morning. It also helps you develop more awareness of the abdominal cavity. So the lifting of the diaphragm, the Uddiyana Bandha, the lower abdomen, the abdominal muscles, the abdominis rectus, all these areas in our stomach that we're kind of like, we try not to think about, or we try not to be conscious of, or if we are, we're like kind of ashamed of, or we have a lot of negative associations with, our bellies, and we don't, we feel like self-conscious. And so Uddiyana Bandha is helpful because it's just like a nice, gentle way to start to get in and address some of these unconscious feelings and emotions. So Uddiyana Bandha will be a nice one. Simple breathing with the use of the Mula Bandha. So drawing the sit bones together, the tailbone, pubic bone together, lifting through the pelvic floor. And making the exhale twice as long as the inhale. And then Jalandhara Bandha, I think you're all familiar with the chin lock or the throat lock, but it's really about taking the head forward, bringing the chin down, but while you're doing that, you need to lift the chest up. So you're in this position like you would be in a shoulder stand, where there's no space between the chin and the chest. Now, sometimes that's not possible. To take the head forward, lift the chest and drop the chin and find this tight bandha. So the other type of Jalandhara Bandha you can do is very similar. It's taking the head forward and then pulling the chin back. And you can see here my chest or my clavicle where the chin was before. It's not there, but it's pulling back and closing off the throat. So you're still trying to lift the chest, but you can just kind of take the head forward and then pull it back, or you can drop it all the way down and have the chin resting against the chest. Now, this bandha will become more important when we start to practice breath retentions or holding the breath, especially internal breath retention. So holding the inhalation, Jalandhara Bandha is a must. It prevents the air from going out. It prevents the internal pressure of holding the air from going up and creating headaches. So it's really important when doing retentions. If you're looking at that handout that I sent to you, you can just skip over these other exercises that I've listed. We'll do them next week. So the Kapalabhati, the Nali, the Agnisara, the Jiva Bandha, Simha Mudra, and Brahma Mudra. We'll do those next week. They're kind of fun and things that you can add into your practice. But we can practice Nadi Shodhana this week also. So this is an excellent pranayama for balancing the nervous system, creating equality or equilibrium between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic nervous system. It really relates to the subtle channels in the body, the Ida and the Pingala nadis. So the Ida nadi corresponding to the left nostril and has like a end point right here on the nose bone, just underneath the nose bone. There's a pressure point there. And the Pingala nadi corresponding to the right nostril. And again, there's that pressure point. So if you take the bone of the nose and the finger just comes underneath, it presses right where the soft part starts underneath the nose bone. And so that's where you want to press when you're practicing with the pranayamas, on that pressure point, because then you're stimulating these subtle energy channels in the body and stimulating the sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system as well, creating homeostasis. So again, we're going to exhale for twice the length of the inhale. So we're getting used to holding the breath a little, but in a very gentle way. And I'm going to show you a little trick. So if one nostril is more blocked than the other, you can just test right now. Probably one feels more open than the other. This is natural. Your nostrils change in dominance about approximately every 90 minutes, give or take. So whichever nostril is more dominant, it has like a cooling or resting, relaxing effect, or maybe a more stimulated active effect. So the body's very intelligent this way. Sometimes when it's really hot out, you'll notice your left nostril stays dominant for longer because it's trying to cool you off. Also, if you have a cold, sometimes the left nostril is like chronically blocked. The right nostril, because your immune system's working, is trying to fight off this chronic cold condition. But you can use this ability of the nostrils to change with time to also give you an advantage in certain situations, because you can actually control their opening and their closing as well. So in Buddhist texts, they always say you should sleep on your right side. And so when you sleep on your right side, what happens is you put pressure through the right side of your body, through the right rib cage, under the right armpit, and the left nostril opens. And this is related to the Ida nadi, the cooling channel, or the parasympathetic nervous system. So you become more ready for resting and sleeping, digesting, relaxing. When maybe you are feeling really fatigued, you could lie on your left side. You have to stay there for a little bit. But you would start to open the right nostril, and then you could maybe get up and feel a little more alert, a little bit more activated. So you can kind of use these different nostrils dominance in different ways. Don't get too hung up on it. But also when you're practicing pranayama, one of the most annoying things, especially in alternate nostril breathing, is when one is really blocked. And so if you have one of these little Mysore towels, they're just Indian dish towels. You can use a North American dish towel also, or a European dish towel. But you can also use other things. Other things work. But the dish towels are nice because you can fold them up to be sort of like this shape, and then a long rectangle, and then you can roll them really, really tightly. And so other things work too, but you really want to make a tight roll that's about that, just so you can kind of fit your hand around it. And so say your right nostril is blocked, you would put the towel under your left armpit and then continue doing the practice and keep it under the left armpit. Eventually, after maybe 1 or 2 rounds, the right nostril will open up and become balanced and equal and open with the left nostril. And then the opposite is also true. If the left nostril is blocked, you want to take the towel and place it under your right armpit. And you want to not just like kind of place it there, but you kind of want to squeeze down. So you'll see it's not just like hanging out, but I'm pushing and squeezing on it. And when you do that, all of a sudden the opposite nostril will open. And so it's important, especially in the Nadi Shodhana, to have both nostrils equally open because it helps with balancing the nervous system. And also it's not annoying. So you can always use one of these little handy towels, rolled up about a fist width. Sometimes people say you should put your fist under the arm, but it doesn't work as well. And also it's not comfortable to like do pranayama like this. It's kind of, it's not comfortable. So better to find like a towel or a t-shirt or something that you can just roll up and place under there, put some pressure, and then you can go about your business and stay comfortable, keep the chest open, not like rounded, like you have to make a fist and now you're doing pranayama all hunched over. That's not good for breathing. You can put this under your arm, sit up nice and tall, and breathe. You all know the posture Dandasana, right? When we come to seated and our legs are straight, it's named after the danda or the crutch. And so you'll see in some pictures, sometimes Shiva has a little crutch. I don't know if I have a Shiva with a crutch. Maybe I do. Hold on. Let me see. Here we go. Okay. So here's my little Shiva. And you can see this little crutch he has here under his arm. I mean, he's just kind of hanging out, resting on it. But what this little crutch is for is it's the danda. And so you would use it like a little crutch. Oops, I put Shiva under my armpit. You would use it like a little crutch and push down on it. And then it stands up here. But the towel does the same thing. So it's like your modern day danda, little crutch for your pranayama practices. So again, you can always, if you feel very comfortable practicing Nadi Shodhana or alternate nostril breathing, you can always bring the mind to the pelvic floor and try to engage the Mula Bandha each time. And you can also relax with the exhale. If you don't feel comfortable, like, you're just getting used to it, or like the pelvic floor seems like a very strange and foreign world too, then just forget about it. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It will come naturally with time. So don't get hung up on, I got to engage Mula Bandha, just get used to breathing. And the thing is Mula Bandha is naturally, Mula and the root of Uddiyana Bandha naturally are engaged at the bottom of your exhale. So you can try this little exercise with me. Inhale, exhale, push all the air out, empty your lungs until your lungs feel completely empty. Now push the last little bit out. Okay, do it one more time. Pay attention to what's happening in your pelvic floor and in your lower belly. So inhale, exhale all the air out till your lungs feel completely empty. No more air is left in them, but there's a little bit of residual air always, so push it out. So you'll notice, I hope, that your pelvic floor and your lower abdomen are what push that air out. Yeah. So to get all the air out of the lungs as much as we possibly can, we naturally engage Mula Bandha and Uddiyana Bandha. The pelvic floor area naturally is activated. So you don't have to work so hard. You can just, over time, you're just going to kind of tap into that natural engagement of those bandhas and strengthen them. Okay, I think that's enough talking about that. We'll practice the Nadi Shodhana Pranayama. So this is a pattern of breathing that is inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right, and then inhaling back through the right, and exhaling through the left. So inhale left, exhale right, exhale left. And remember, you can use your little dunda if one nostril is more blocked than the other. And I'm going to also use my handy metronome so that you can internally count, because you have an external reminder that's keeping track in a scientific, non-subjective way, in a very objective way. It's not going to speed up or slow down. It's always going to be the same. And you'll notice that sometimes you feel like, oh, it's going a lot faster, or it feels like it's going so slow now. This is our mind. And so you start to see why you can't really rely on yourself counting correctly at the beginning. And it's because when we're feeling like, oh, this is getting a little bit hard, we want to speed up the count. Or when we feel like, oh, this is so easy, we start to elongate the count. And so it's important to keep the inhale and the exhale, that ratio 1:2. Okay. The hand position we're going to use is Vishnu Mudra, using the ring finger against the left nostril, and the thumb against the right nostril, and these other two fingers down at the base of the thumb. Now, some schools teach pranayama like this, with these two fingers here on the Bhumadhya. But what happens often is all of the awareness and attention goes up here to the third eye, to the Bhumadhya, because you're touching this third eye. And it can create some very intense headaches often in people. And what we really actually want our attention to be on is our pelvic floor and our lower abdomen, and feeling this prana apana pattern. So feeling the expansiveness of the breath, but also the holding of the apana at the bottom. And then as the apana, the downward energy comes, we want to feel the expansiveness and the holding of the prana at the top, right? So we want to feed the prana into the apana and the apana into the prana. And so this is really what we want to concentrate on, is this area here, not up here right now. Okay? So the first two fingers come to the thumb. At first this feels maybe a little bit unnatural, this hand position with the fingers at the base of the thumb, but after a while it just feels quite normal and you get used to it. So the ring finger underneath the nose bone on the left nostril, and then the thumb underneath the nose bone on the right nostril. Okay? So wherever you are, just exhale through both nostrils. This is your reset breath. We'll practice 10 rounds of Nadi Shodhana. So closing the right nostril, inhale left. Close, exhale right. Inhale right. Close, exhale left. Inhale left. Close, exhale right. Inhale right. Close, exhale left. That's 2 rounds. Inhale left. Close, exhale right. Inhale right. Close, exhale left. Inhale left. Close, exhale right. Inhale right. Close, exhale left. Four rounds. Again, inhale left. Close, exhale right. Inhale back through the right. Close, exhale left. Now 5 more rounds on your own. Inhale left. When you're ready, exhaling through the right for double the length of your inhale. And then as you feel ready, inhaling back through the right. Then exhaling through the left for double the length of your inhale. That's 1 round, 4 more on your own. You'll probably all be about done by now. And just keep your eyes closed and just observe any changes in the breathing, any changes in your body, any changes in your mind. Take a few moments just to mentally appreciate what you've just done. Just let the effects sink in. Even if you'd like to lie down and take a brief shavasana or resting pose. You can lie down and stretch the legs out and just take a nice little resting pose, allowing the circulation to move freely through the body. And just let yourself relax here. And really enjoy the effects and the benefits of the practice. Good. So I think we'll end here today. Thanks for sticking with me through the beginning. Such a mess. But for those of you who are in my Pranayama course, you have the PDF. And like I said, if you look at the last page, page 7, it talks about preparatory breathing exercises. And here we just have the simple breathing in through both nostrils and breathing out through both nostrils, but elongating the exhale to be twice the length of the inhale. So 10 times for those. And the Nadi Shodhana, the alternate nostril breathing, so the one we just did, inhaling through the left, exhaling through the right, inhaling back through the right, exhaling through the left. Again, elongating the exhalation to be twice the length of the inhalation. If you have a clock or a metronome, it's helpful so that you can hear and keep track. We won't do any retentions this week, just getting used to making that exhalation twice the length of the inhalation is the task to focus on. You can also focus on Nali, or not Nali. I mean, if you can do Nali, you can focus on Nali, but Uddiyana Bandha or Nali Kriya. So the lifting of the diaphragm 3 to 5 times before the practice on an empty stomach. Getting used to sucking the diaphragm up and the organs, compressing them and getting the digestive system going with 3 to 5 Uddiyana Bandha practices, or Nali, if you can do the circular rotation. We'll look at that more next week. And I think that's everything that we talked about. So that's a lot of homework. But it shouldn't take too long. Maybe it will take, let's see, I think maybe 10 minutes maximum. So it's not too much. The breathing and the Nali, or the Uddiyana Bandha Kriya. Uddiyana Bandha Kriya eventually becomes Nali Kriya, so that's why I keep saying Nali instead of Uddiyana Bandha. But yeah, that should take care of about 10 minutes of your day, just focused breathing, allowing the mind to just rest on the breath and observing the effects of that, of daily pranayama. And we'll connect back next week, hopefully without the drama of logging on. And in the meantime, I'm going to try and come up with a backup plan. So thank you so much. Drop me an email if you have any questions, or just to let me know that you were able to see the whole thing. I believe this will save, so you can probably come back and watch it again. But I don't know. Okay. We'll do the closing mantra. We'll just do the closing mantra from the Ashtanga Yoga practice, because we all know this mantra, so we can chant together. Swasti prajabhyaha paripalayantam nyayena margena mahim mahishaha go brahmanebhyaha shumatsu nityam lokaha samastaha sukhino bhavantu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, thank you so much. We'll see you soon. Namaste.